morning.
It's good to see everyone this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now in the hands of Ms. Lisa Carroll.
This is the pre-meeting of the Mobile City Council, Tuesday, September 24th. We have approval of minutes from September the 10th and the 17th.
Any issues, anyone? Okay.
Appeals, we have requests for waiver of the noise ordinance on October the 12th from 9 a.m. until 4 p.m. on Adams Street. October 31st from 4 p.m. until 10 p.m. on Elmira Street. October 26th from 7 p.m. until 9:30, Timberlane Court.
Carroll and Reynolds.
No problem.
Okay.
Public hearings today is a public hearing to consider rezoning of property. Oh, it is pre-zoning? Okay. It is pre-zoning of property located at 4589 Hermitage Avenue, 5340 US Highway 90 West to B3. Presentation of petitions and other communications to the council. Kevin Johnson asking that the duration of the traffic light on Airport Boulevard side of Yester Oaks apartment be changed.
Mr. President,
Mr. Days.
the council will recall that several months ago it approved a recommendation to install a gate that is accessible only to emergency personnel from where the apartments exit on the north side into South Claridge Road. That gate was erected and installed in the last couple of weeks. I've received a few complaints from the dwellers of the apartments. I've asked Ms. White to be here because one of the things we are going to look at is, or she is going to look at, is increasing the duration of the light that controls the exit from the apartments on Airport Boulevard, and that exit lines up with Mont Lamar on the other side. So I've asked Ms. White to be here today to talk about what she's going to do to look at it and determine whether any changes need to be made.
Yeah, we're going to have to physically sit somebody in the field during multiple times of the day to field adjust it just temporarily while we gather. We're going to gather a week's worth of traffic counts out there to truly see the impact to the system. And then we'll have to adjust not only it, but the other signals in the system with it. So it'll maybe not be the best at first as we just kind of do some tiny tweaks to it that we can see during the peak hours. But we're going to start gathering data to see what overall needs to be done.
I would, one of the things we hope is that putting that gate up will reduce the flow of cut-through traffic through the apartments, and so that alone will reduce the.
Yeah, I think at first we're going to have some increase because people will go down there and not realize the gate's there. They'll turn around and come back out, and then the traffic should start. So that's why we're not even starting our counts right away. We're trying to let everybody know they can't get through and kind of not pollute those counts. And so we're going to do the field adjust first and then do the counts and then come back and adjust it again. But it's just going to be a process to get those counts and process them.
Okay. Any questions? Anybody?
Did any letters go? Well, I'm sure outside the apartment complex, other people use to cut through traffic, but maybe did any letters go out to the apartment complex to let them know that
Not that I sent. I think the apartment owners recently sent something out.
Okay. So that could, I know you were saying, for them to know that gate. I did have a question, Ms. White. We have some similar issues. I guess will we recommend, like on Moffett Road with the light adjustments? What's the process to request that?
We're currently doing all the lights in the city. So
Okay.
Every signal's getting retimed at this point. We have, I think you're talking about the one around 65 interchange, that Moffett and 65, kind of those signals in that area.
Yeah, that's one. And then the Moffett Road and Wolf Ridge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's getting retimed also.
Okay.
So all of those are getting retimed. We do have issue around the 165. We've put more money probably in those intersections than any of them because of the train tracks and some other, just the number of intersections coming in one spot. But everything's getting retimed as part of this RTOP program that we're doing. We started rolling out the timing plans about 2 weeks ago. That's when we were getting, if any of y'all got calls about Midtown and signals on flash on Sunday morning and Monday morning.
Yes.
That was the time and push caused them to do that. And we were having to go out and, do everything in the field to kind of get it back in working order. But we are doing some this week, next week, and then toward the end of October, we'll do the last little bit of them. So we're doing anywhere from like 40 to 70 intersections each week that we do this. So our consultants are coming down. They're physically pushing it through the computer and then going out and field adjusting it. So they're here for a full week, just working on those intersections. A good bit of Midtown got done in the first phase. A little smaller section of Midtown, what was left, got done. We're also out in some of the far reaches ends of the cities also doing this. So it's just getting done in sections.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, thank you.
John Robb, requesting for remedial action concerning the Mobile Tree Commission. Melissa Gates, public safety and library funding. Linda Perot, funding to the public library. Renee Chapa, requesting the council, that the council request the library place books that they've referenced in an area not accessible by minors. Beverly Stevens, safety of citizens on Mobile. Sabrina Mass, library and addressing citizens that are speaking. Michael Woodard, stopping the decline of the city of Mobile, considering Jacksonville, Florida model. Ordinance is held over. 83049, ordinance to annex certain property into the corporate limits of the city of Mobile.
Mr. Rosser. Morning.
Are we? So you've got a public hearing scheduled on the pre-zoning. And then this ordinance is for the annexation of the property. And then on the next page, under ordinances being introduced, is the pre-zoning of the property. They kind of go together. And we had tried to get them put on the same agenda so that they could be voted on the same date. And somehow that just got messed up. So we would ask, and Mr. Baker, Garrett Baker from Delaney Development is here if you have any questions, that both ordinances be put on the same agenda to be voted on at the same time. So I would suggest either waive the rule and vote on the pre-zoning today, or hold this annexation one over until next week.
Do y'all have any problems with waiving the rules on this so that they can be voted on today? Anybody?
I don't. Reynolds.
Ben?
Yeah, I don't have an objection. Ordinance to annex, is that what you're saying?
Well, no, the ordinance is being introduced. Just go ahead and waive the rules on that one so that both of these can be voted on at the same time.
I have no objection barring someone showing up, during the public hearing and raising some issue that, requires our
Yeah.
necessity to address it next week.
Okay.
Otherwise, I have no objection.
Mr. President.
Mr.
Mr. Rosser, so this is kind of just for the public. But can you tell us why this is pre-zoned versus just being zoned? Can you, I guess, just for knowledge for the public of why the pre-zoning is there?
Yeah, pre-zoning is allowed by a statute, and I'll bet you we can go back through the history of the city of Mobile, and it's never been done before. The lots involved in this development, half of them were brought into the city 20 years ago, I think, and they were zoned, but the other half was out in the county, so it was not zoned. The developer asked that we utilize pre-zoning so that they would know that the property would be zoned for their development, their commercial uses, which include a Chick-fil-A and another restaurant, I believe, prior to an annexation.
Gotcha. Just wanted to clarify, this is one situation, not a common practice that
It's
gets done.
definitely not a common practice.
Other questions or comments from the council? Mr. Carroll?
They did walk the process already, right? Planning commission, everything else.
Yes, yes, it went through planning commission.
That's, I just want everybody else to hear that. Talk about rezoning.
Right. Yeah, the pre-zoning statute says you have to follow the usual procedures.
Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you.
Okay, thank y'all.
CIP resolutions held over. 01898, agreement with J. Payne Organization for structural retaining wall and grading improvements at Sullivan Park. Resolutions held over. 14775, approve an application seeking permission to incorporate a capital improvement cooperative district and authorizing such incorporation.
Mr. Carroll?
If we have, excuse me, if I'm thinking we have the support on the second one, I say we table this one and move forward with the agreement between all parties that we're all thinking alike. So we'll table this one and vote on the next one.
Madam Clerk?
One question, is it possible to move these behind each other?
I'm gonna support the other one. So you will have objection.
You're actually gonna support it?
All right, Madam Clerk?
01897, agreement with Jaguar Consulting for mechanical improvements at West Regional Library. 08901, approved purchase order to Truck Equipment Sales to provide and install landscaper body on Chevrolet chassis for Parks Department. 09902, approved establishing the City of Mobile Housing Improvement Plan Enterprise Fund.
Any questions or comments from the council?
It's been a long time coming, but a change is definitely gonna come. This is a good thing. Appreciate everybody's support on this, and we'll talk more about it at 10:30.
21903, authorized contract with Gradient for postage meter lease for mailroom. 25904, grant a permanent sidewalk and permanent utility easement agreement for North McGregor O'Shea Road to Spring Hill Avenue. 31905, authorize the mayor to apply, accept, and receive a grant from the Alabama Department of Transportation for Highway Safety Improvement Program. Ordinance is being introduced. 64053 is the pre-zoning ordinance on Hermitage Avenue and US Highway 90 West. Consent resolutions being introduced. 03906, appoint Zachary Moore to the Mobile Museum of Art Board. 31907, authorize the mayor to apply, accept, and receive funding from the Institute of Museum and Library Services for their Inspire grant, 25,000, no local match. 31908, authorize the mayor to apply, accept, and receive grant funds from the Bureau of Justice for the fiscal year 24 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant, no local match. 58909, authorized removal of weeds, group 1659. 6910, 911, 912, 913, 914, 915, 916, 9R. Determining appropriations to Covenant Academy of Mobile, 100 Black Men of Greater Mobile, the Nest Corporation, Inc., Mobile Veterans Treatment Court Support, Mobile Area Education Foundation, Women's Resource Center, I read that one. All serve a public purpose and approving payments. 60, 916, 917, 918 are approving award of special bonus to Public Works Employee of the Month, Administrative Services Employee of the Month, and City Clerk's Office Employee of the Month. 37932, recommend approval to the ABC Board for issuance of a special events retail license to El Jaffe House of Cigars on Virginia Street. Resolutions being introduced. 01919, authorized agreement with Harris Consulting Services for electrical service upgrade and generator installation at the Public Works Complex, $178,400. 01920, authorized agreement with the state of Alabama for participation in the fiscal year 2022 state and local cybersecurity grant program.
2022?
Councilman
Is
Davis?
that correct? Scott? Scott?
FY '22.
Hey, I'm Scott Kearney, Chief Technology Officer. Yeah, this was the state of Alabama's program that they just got involved in. It has to do with the Federal Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. And the money's funneled through the Office of Information Technology. They kind of put together a committee with different state agencies and local government representation. What was the question? Which fiscal year is it?
Yeah, why is it FY '22?
Yeah, it says round one, they had $3 million for local governments in round one, and that was the 2022, which is 2022, 2025. And then round two would be the 6 million. And I don't think that's available yet. That would be 2023, 2026, if that makes sense. I know it's grants. I don't understand it either. But this is really just for us to get into the program because we haven't really applied for anything. They just required us to do this, and then we'll see what's available. It's probably training, and it could be possibly we could get funding for different equipment or services for cybersecurity.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Can we go back to 37,932? Somehow I overlooked that. That's at Ladd Stadium, is it not? So which special event is this? And is this for the game on the 5th?
Yes.
Oh, okay, so they're gonna have a site out there. Okay.
01932, authorized project development agreement with Mobile County Industrial Park Board of Mobile County and Scanell Properties, $2 million.
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Reynolds.
Very disappointed to see this one back on our agenda. We really, last time was quite the negotiation or, agreement that we were able to reach. I hate that this thing is back. The developer's back here before us, requesting some modifications to the original deal. The deal that I've seen so far, read through, is not someone that I can support. I hope y'all join me in not supporting it as it's currently written. I'm certainly open to some modifications, and I understand that they, have had some trouble finding potential clients out there because of the deed restrictions. And, I'm open to some modifications. I've made my concerns known to them. I've put forward several ways forward. I don't know where we currently stand. I hope after this meeting, I'll sit down with the developer and see, check their temperature a little bit, see where we're at. I'd like to try to get something done here, but, it's important to note that nobody's standing in their way from building their project right now. They can go build their project today. Nobody's stopping them. This is regarding incentive. So just wanted to make everybody aware of that.
08921, approved purchase order to send some equipment for automated side load garbage truck for public services, $403,759.71. 08922, approved purchase order to Halls Motorsports for utility vehicle for animal services, $22,999. 08923, approved purchase order to Kane's Tree and Landscape to remove tree hazards on O'Shell Road, $41,900. 08924, approved purchase order to Kane's Tree and Landscape to prune and remove trees on Cottage Hill Road, $132,000. 08925, approved purchase order to Chris Francis Tree Care to prune and remove trees on Spring Hill Avenue, $351,540. 08926, approved purchase order to Priority Dispatch Corporation for annual renewal of emergency dispatch quality assurance software, $35,560. 09927, authorized fiscal year 2025 Rebuild Alabama allocation, $1,300,000. 31928, authorized the mayor to apply, accept, and receive grant funds from the Alabama Department of Transportation for the Highway Safety Improvement Program, $3 million. A 10% local match is required. 50929, approved TEFRA bond financing and multifamily residential rental development located at 2001 Brill Road. 6930, request that the Planning Commission consider the rezoning of Lot 6 of Todd Acres Industrial Park subdivision.
Mr. President.
Yes.
I believe this is, I would like for us to possibly consider tabling this. You know, I kind of going back and again, this is not about the deal that's on the table or whatever's going on as far as, I guess, you know, the new subdivision. This to me is totally different things. You know, it's my understanding that, us as a body, the city council body, we've already rezoned this to R1. And, I guess, the question I have, I guess, is, you know, maybe for Mr. Woods, is there anything we can provide as to why this is here when UDC's allowed us? I would rather, instead of shifting this back to planning commission, I'd rather just us fix it here. I think it's unnecessary for it to go back to planning commission.
And I have seen Mr. Linder's opinion that he emailed to y'all last week. I'm not here to discuss that. Mr. Linder's a great lawyer. Have all the respect in the world for him. He's smart. Hate to see him leaving. But I will say this. Since 1965, when we had our first zoning ordinance, and contrary to rumor, Mr. Atchison and I were not around at that time. Everything's always gone to the planning commission first. So no matter how you read the code, we've got that history of everything having gone to the planning commission first. But that is not what I want to discuss today. Let me just hand these out to y'all, and if I have miscounted, let me know. I tried to avoid this. I tried to get this worked out. My first email on this subject was April the 8th, trying to get this worked out so that we wouldn't have to address this publicly. The state code requires 2 publications prior to the adoption of a zoning ordinance. The first publication must be the ordinance in full. The second publication must be 1 week after the first, and it's called a synopsis. Both publications have to be 15 days prior to the vote, the adoption of the zoning ordinance. Unfortunately, on this one, and this was discovered, I believe, in April, both of the required publications, the one in full and the synopsis, were in the newspaper on December 20th, the same day. And that does not comply with the publication requirements of the state code. And the courts have said that they are strictly enforced. And if you don't satisfy the publication requirements, then the ordinance is void.
Mr. President?
Hello, you done, Mr. Woods?
Yes, sir. I definitely, I understand that. But also too, I do think that, I don't want us to do anything, speaking to council now. I would prefer us not do anything until, you know, we've had our legal opinion looked at by our lawyer, but then also too, I just don't want to set precedent. UDC, and while I do understand that zoning's been since 1965, but we're under the UDC now, and the UDC specifically, I got it here in front of me, gives power to the council, and I just, regardless if we need to do this right, if there's an error and we need to do it right, then I think the council needs to hold this and do this right. I don't foresee sending this back to the planning commission. We have power when it comes to zoning. And I think we have to exercise that power and not set a precedent of just sending things back to the old way of doing things. So that's it.
And again, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Reynolds?
This is easily resolved. We'll just put out the notice again. I think we can resolve that.
We've already had 2 instances in the not too distant past that
Yeah.
we had some issues that we had to resend and renotice.
So,
Right,
yeah,
it-
so we
it
we can
is
just
easily
renotice
resolved.
it. So if that resolves the matter from your perspective, or is there some other,
Well, if
you know,
y'all would just-
reason you'd want to send this back to the planning commission?
When you go forward, you go back and look at the ordinance that was passed in January, and just take a close look at that. It needs, I will submit, a little bit of work. The second page rezones the property from B5 office distribution and I2 industrial to office distribution. That's just a Scrivener's error. Again, that's something easily taken care of. But like I said, I've been trying to get this resolved since April the 8th and have gotten nowhere. Would have preferred to have done it outside of a public meeting.
I don't really see a problem with, I mean, you know, these things sort of happen. I don't think it's that big of a deal. We can, you know, fix these Scrivener's errors, put out the public notice, you know, as needed. And then I think we've resolved the issue at that point. Would you agree?
I believe it has to go to the planning commission. But you've got your own lawyer that gives you an opinion on that.
Certainly. Thank you.
Jim, why do you believe it has to go to planning commission? Why?
Not only the history of all the procedures, the UDC says that the council may initiate a rezoning process and then goes through to explain the rezoning process of how it has to go to the planning commission, who makes a recommendation. It clearly states that the council shall not act on a rezoning until that recommendation has been received. Also, our read of the enabling statutes in Title 11, Chapter 52, clearly, in our opinion, provide that planning commission review is required first.
So why does the UDC give the council the ability to initiate?
To initiate. Our intent in that was what is before you today, that the city council,
Request
if the city
planning
council
commission.
was interested in rezoning a property or having a property rezoned, and this has been done on several occasions that I know of because I drafted the resolutions, where the council would initiate it by asking the planning commission to look at it, consider it, and to make a recommendation.
What properties would those have been owned by individuals or property owned by the city?
Oh, individuals.
So the request actually came from an individual where the council then requested the planning commission to take up zoning? So,
Let me-
so the individual should have made the request to the planning commission anyway, not the council. The council just did it on request of an individual.
Yeah, and let me clarify that. The last one, which wasn't but a few months ago, was on the Armory property in Spring Hill. Now that is owned by the city. It's under contract to a private developer who wants to develop it, and to accommodate the development, we had to amend the Spring Hill overlay to allow planned developments. That's the last one that the council passed this resolution and sent it to the planning commission first for a recommendation.
So in essence, we're talking about the council has the ability to initiate when it's city-owned property.
I believe the city council has the ability to initiate no matter whose property it is.
So if,
But the initiation is a sending to the planning commission asking for a study and a
For
recommendation.
them to do what they do.
for who to do what they
The
did.
planning commission should.
Well,
consider
that's not what I'm saying. What if I own Jake's grocery store on the corner of Texas and Broad, and somehow or another, the council wants to initiate a rezoning? How's the council going to do that? Doesn't the council have to have ownership in the property in order to initiate a rezoning?
No, but you do have to satisfy due process.
That's
You've
my
got
point.
to notify the property owner and either get the consent or satisfy all the due process requirements of notice, and this is what we are going to do.
So in essence, the council can actually change the zoning on a street where residential properties are at a whim,
Not at a whim,
just by going through the process.
by going through the process.
That's dangerous.
Well, and I think that's why the check and balance for the planning commission is there.
That's
Planning
extremely
commission does a good
dangerous.
job. It has to go through departmental reviews before it gets addressed by the planning commission. So you've got a lot of checks and balances there.
It just leads me to think that some individual could come ask a council member, hey, I need this stretch of property rezoned that has other properties owners on it. And some council member chooses to say, hey, we need to initiate a rezoning request right here. That's a whole lot. That's dangerous.
Oh,
It-
I'm
It
not-
needs to go through the process as the process used to be. And I think I said this during the UDC process. This needs to be stricken from the UDC period. It needs to go through the process as it always has, where the council has the ability to initiate zoning within the UDC.
Mr. President.
That's another item.
Well, I think we're agreeing here that the
I am-
council can initiate it, but send it through the process.
It needs to always go through the
And let it go
process.
all the way through the process, all the way through the wash cycle before there's any action taken.
Mr. President.
We're on.
There's a legal opinion that we don't have to have a huge drawn out debate here today on it, but there is a legal opinion in all y'all's inbox that you can read that gets to the facts of this particular issue. I think one thing that's not being discussed is the separation between the council acting on a zoning motion versus an applicant. I think the applicant portion, if somebody were to apply for a rezoning, that would be handled through an administrative process, which would then be placed on the planning commission's agenda, and they will then ultimately make a recommendation to the city council. And, Mr. Carroll's point about, maybe it is, dangerous and somebody could, wield it in some different way. Maybe those facts are true, but it does not supersede the fact that the UDC says what it says and allows this action, which has been clearly laid out in the email that you all have in your inbox. So if a modification is needed or desired by the city council to change the UDC, we certainly could take that action up. But as it stands right now, it's pretty well written that it's possible, and this ability to take this action is new. It's expanded action. And I don't know what the intent was or the purpose was, but we find ourselves in this position, as a result of it.
Mr. Davis? Anyone else? All right, thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Call for public hearings. 41931, call for public hearing to consider assenting to the vacation of an alley adjacent to property located at 1003 Oak Street, scheduled October 29th. Announcements.
Okay, Mrs. Gregory?
Yeah, we have a Public Safety Committee meeting this afternoon, 1:00. There are several items on our agenda, red lights, drag racing, that sort of thing. I'm hoping that we will have some breakdowns of the recent red light blitz, that sort of thing. And I know we've talked about drag racing, so there will be several issues that everybody will want to get some updates on.
Any other council members?
Mr. President?
Mr. Penn?
Yeah, just a quick question. We had some incident where we having a lot of 18-wheelers going through neighborhoods. I see signage on certain streets that said, that's not allowed. What is the guidelines for that? Is that on certain streets that, what's the process of 18-wheelers going through neighborhoods? Do we have from the administration? Can anybody? Anybody? Because they knocked down a power line and took some power out in the Tomerville community. Well, if you can get some information on that for me, that'd be great. All right. Thank you.
Anything else from the council? Anything from the administration? Okay. We'll see each other at 10:30.